For those of you who have been with us since MET began, you'll know that this is our third set of research findings. For those of you who haven't, I want to invite you to metproject.org, where you can find the results from these reports and the others that we've produced over the past 3 years. This last paper, entitled Feedback for Better Teaching, isn't strictly a research paper, but it is full of lessons learned over the past 3 years. MET set out to test if it is possible to measure effective teaching. Our research proved it is. Now it is time for us to encourage you to put into practice feedback and evaluation using multiple measures that teachers can trust. For years, teachers have been lonely in their quest to improve. Now, many of you are in the process of changing that by building trustworthy feedback and evaluation systems. For those of you who are, I hope that you actively promote your systems in support of teacher growth and development. There have always been, in nearly every school, a few great teachers. You can remember yours. I certainly remember mine. The real question is how to help more teachers excel in their craft. As the University of Michigan's Teaching Works motto proclaims, great teachers are made, not born. Feedback and evaluation systems can help the average teacher who wants to be great, who wants to be remembered as one of those teachers who made kids work hard and achieve success. Yet it's hard to cultivate exceptional practice, to move along the path from novice to expert. We know from experience that self-improvement efforts are not enough. For every teacher to be effective, it will require coordinated support, informed by good measures, good data, and good intentions. The first place to invest in your teacher's development is to build robust feedback and evaluation systems. Remember, the purpose of feedback and evaluation is to improve teaching and learning. It's not just about holding teachers accountable. It's not just about holding teachers accountable, but informing the entire system of teacher support so that your teachers can enable their students to become better learners. But good systems don't just happen. They're products of design and operation. To help you as you build and implement, we've developed a set of guiding principles. You'll recognize some of the best ideas because we borrowed them from you, but we're giving them back. We boiled down what we've learned into 9 principles. They fall into 3 categories: measure effective teaching, invest in improvement, and ensure high-quality data. Before I start, I need to provide a gentle warning. This is not a list from which to pick and choose. None of these are optional. There are no shortcuts. If a system neglects any one of these principles, it won't work, or worse, it'll do harm. As you measure effective teaching, there are 3 principles to guide your selection of measures. First, set expectations. Your measures should flow from your expectations for teaching. If these expectations aren't clear, then teachers will focus on the measures rather than what is being measured. The measures should serve your ideas for what constitutes effective teaching, not define them. Second, use multiple measures. Teaching is complex and difficult. Any single measure cannot provide us enough information to guide its improvement. If there's a critical aspect of teaching that isn't being measured, Everything that we know from accountability systems suggests that what isn't measured will be neglected. Third, balanced weights. Balanced weights are more reliable. Furthermore, putting too much attention on any one measure can draw too much attention to it. And more importantly, risk that too little attention is being paid to other important aspects of teaching. It's hard work to produce high-quality data, but it's essential for building trust in feedback and evaluation. In the absence of trust, few will use feedback to make changes, and the system will simply not work. There are three determinants of high-quality data. The first is monitor validity. Validity is the strength of the relationship between your measure and your goals. When you add a measure to a system, you are making a bargain with your teachers. You are telling your teachers, work hard on this aspect of your teaching, and your students will be better learners. We need to uphold that bargain and continually monitor the validity of our measures. Reliability is the removal of error in measurement. We've already talked much about how to reduce error in classroom observation. Effective training, rater certification and calibration, observing multiple lessons by multiple observers. And while it's essential to have the right measures and the right measurement processes, it's also vital that these data are attributed accurately. It's not as easy as it sounds. Schools are dynamic places. Students change classes, they move, they switch schools. Schedules change. Teachers are hired, they retire, they go on leave. The data system needs to ensure that we're able to keep track of this movement. In MET, we asked each teacher to verify the accuracy of the student roster. Otherwise, we could have mistakenly attributed student learning gains to the wrong set of teaching knowledge, skills, and behavior. The third and final set of principles reminds us that feedback and evaluation is an investment in improvement. Well, I suspect that your intent is to invest in improvement. It needs to be communicated in words and in deeds. For feedback and evaluation systems have been broken for a long time, and it's going to require a little bit of repair to get your systems to trust them. Teachers are worried about being set one against another. The teachers on our advisory board made it clear that they wanted feedback. They were open to feedback. But they wanted their feedback to be performance-based and not just a rating based on relative standing. Their counsel undergirds our seventh principle: make meaningful distinctions. It's clear that teaching effectiveness is not distributed normally or uniformly. We saw neither a bell curve nor for similarly sized groups of teachers for every performance category. I'm not sure what it looks like in your district, but in MET, the difference between the 25th and 75th percentile teacher for both the observations and for the student surveys was small. Now, I'm not going to tell you how many performance categories to have or where to draw your cut points. But I will say that your categories should reflect performance standards that identify teachers with demonstrably different impacts on student learning. Furthermore, performance categories should signal something, whether it's a sanction, a warning, no action, eligibility for enhanced responsibilities, or a reward. There's no point in having two categories with exactly the same consequence. Now, investing in improvement means that most teachers must benefit from the feedback and evaluation system. It better do more than identify whom to fire. It'll be important to prioritize feedback and support, and to celebrate improvement. We've done that a little bit here. Finally, the responsibility for improving teaching and learning shouldn't rest on the teacher's shoulders alone. Systems that use feedback and evaluation data at all levels will be smarter than those that don't. Well, I hope that these principles provide practical guidance. I thought an example of a data dashboard might help make them even more concrete. Remember, the goal of all this measurement is to support better teaching and learning. But measurement alone won't help teaching and learning improve. That will require coordinated support at the district level and effective feedback conversations at the classroom and school level. Good data should reveal good conversations. It should reveal areas of strength where good teachers can share their best practices. It should reveal areas in need of support so struggling teachers can find the assistance that they need. Let me assure you that we don't really have a teacher in MET named Mrs. A, but this is all real MET data. You'll see that for every measure, the display allows a comparison between the teacher's data and the data for the school and for the district. You'll also see that the dashboard drills down. It provides greater detail for every measure as the eye travels from the top to the bottom of the dashboard. The multiple measures bar at the top contains roughly 3,500 data points. There are 4 rows. Each of those are the composite measures. The first is the composite score itself. The second row is the state math test. The third row is the classroom observation. Here it's framework for teaching. The fourth row is the student survey. Every column is an individual teacher's data. And the colors represent performance standards. Below the multiple measures bar are 3 panels. Each panel has a summary view and a detailed view. The summary view is a box plot. Now, just to remind you, for those of you who haven't had statistics in a little while, the box plot, the box itself covers the area from the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile. The lines extend out to the 5th percentile on one side, the 95th percentile on the other side. In the middle is the median score for the district. There's a dark blue dot that represents the teacher and a light blue dot that represents the school. The MET project teachers demonstrated a mix of effective and ineffective practices. The data display tries to be transparent about this fact, and also to encourage conversations that don't exaggerate small differences, but help identify opportunities for growth and support. So let's jump to the scariest part of this data. Now, I know that some of you look at this and think it's some kind of Rorschach test. It's not. And some of you say, wow, that looks hard. I'll wait for the data guy to explain. But I'm going to make you work a little bit. I want to lead you through this because I think it's the kind of thing that needs to happen with your teachers in your systems. First, every one of these dots is a student. Aren't they cute? The key to understanding a scatter plot is to figure out what's being compared. In this case, what's being compared are 2 different years of student performance. The question this display is trying to answer is, given prior performance, are Mrs. A's students performing as well as predicted? Let's start with the x-axis, the horizontal at the bottom. This x-axis shows prior achievement, so given prior performance. What do we know about Mrs. A's students' prior performance? Clearly, Mrs. A has students with below average prior performance. So the next question is, how did they perform under her teaching? The dashed white line shows the point exactly where performance and predicted performance are equal. So now we can ask, do Mrs. A's students perform better, worse, or as predicted? Now we know from the box plot, if you turn back to the big data display, we could tell from the box plot that our students on average performed well. But the scatter plot allows us to dive in for greater detail. Now, there might not be anything noteworthy in the data, so we're not trying to force it, but there is a pattern worth looking at. So nearly all of Mrs. A's lowest performing students meet or exceed the predicted score. Now, you wouldn't know that just from the score, and that's part of the benefit of having more data at your fingertips. Plus, it helps your teachers demystify something as complicated as value added by being able to pinpoint actual student performance prior and against expectations. The middle panel of that dashboard is classroom observation. The instrument in use is Charlotte Danielson's Framework for Teaching. Mrs. A's students scored slightly above the mean, and most of the teachers in the district scored within a very narrow range. The panel on the right is the tripod survey, and here the pattern is very different. Both Mrs. A's and her school's data fall below the 25th percentile, indicating that this is an area of weakness. So let's imagine what the feedback conversation might sound like. The coach might begin by affirming that Mrs. A's students are performing well, especially those students who are struggling the year before. But do you know how you can do better? The coach points out that 2 tripod scores are low and worth paying attention to: confer and control. There's an opportunity to listen to your students. They are telling you that they want to be treated with more respect and that they want you to demand more respect from them. That's something we can work on together, and that's something that'll help your students become better learners. As you practice feedback and evaluation to improve teaching and learning, I trust that your systems will reflect these principles. It's not about sorting, it's about improving. Improving as individuals, as a system, as a field, so that your students have the best possible opportunities for college, career, and life success.